Well, greetings everyone who might be watching this. My name is Kurt, and I wanted to document what it might be like to record just the beginnings of creating a new character in Grim Dawn. And so let's get started. I wanted to create a female veteran hardcore, and I already have cut and pasted a name, and I've got an idea for this character. I wanted to do a Trickster, which would be a Nightblade / Shaman. That was actually my very first character, but I didn't know what I was doing at all. Didn't do too well. But I didn't start hardcore either, so that's okay. So we're just going to kind of rip through this real quick. And by the way, I'm playing with a Steam controller. It's I like it because you can whip the camera around. It's, in my opinion, a lot smoother than playing with a mouse. It's just my personal preference.
Still drawing breath. You were possessed. He's up the road.
So we'll just kind of whip through the storyline here real quick.
You're not looking too bad for someone just come back from the brink of death. The bodies of the dead are rising again in some... You will need to fight your way through lower...
Okay. Yeah. Let's not get ourselves killed on the bridge. Okay, pick up the first thing you see. Helmet. It's good. Okay. Pick up everything you can find, of course. Normal items don't sell for very much. Usually I filter those out just as soon as every slot in my inventory is filled and been upgraded to at least something better than what you start with. Okay, there's a note. Yeah, that's up here, actually. It's the next house, I think. I think it's in this house. It's funny when you're first level, you just read any kind of note, and you get a huge amount of experience points for doing so, even if it's like 25 experience points relative to your okay, well, let's just get out of here real quick. Yeah, so I can level up. Okay. And we will, I think I'm going to start with the shaman, actually, and there's a reason for this. And, okay, so the build, I'm kind of going for bleeding / pierce / physical damage. So we're going to start with bleeding right from the get-go. And, yeah, physique is fine. I guess some people want to put all points into physique. I don't do that. Obviously you need a lot, probably most, but you're going to need eventually some cunning, especially if you're a melee fighter. Well, really especially if you're... Okay, why did I not assign to my controller what I'm going to do here? Instead of doing this, we need to at least have a skill other than swinging. swinging a club. Would be great. Okay. So, left trigger. Swarm, replace this with savagery. Okay. Alright, that's better. Make it a little bit better. Okay, at least you get something. Read that note, and then look at the down below Bohm. Get a lot of big, huge bonus experience points versus what you need to go up. Those boots. Okay, another note we can read. Boom. It's like nearly a fifth or something. But you need to go up. Now, if I can actually make it to the next house that has notes. It's up north of the boys. Okay. Take that food ration. Let's just get out of here. Even as slow as this character is, they're even slower. Okay. Okay. I'm just gonna go boom, boom, boom. I mean, you can essentially allocate your points in whichever way you want. These points as well, although these are obviously not as reconfigurable without the very rare potions that they give you to reconfigure your attribute points. But I'm gonna need a little bit of each. Oops, dummy. Slightly more effective now. Let's not walk through the poison. Let's see. Don't need that yet. There he is. We'll see if we can get him to drop. What I'm looking for and why I started with this character. It's funny how you can just stay just out of arm's reach if you do it right. Which is another reason I kind of like using a controller. He's not happy with me.
I'm out of energy.
Well, he's almost out of life, so that's good. There it is. And he dropped a bunch of other stuff too. Probably be helpful. Yeah. Alright. Oh, you know what? Check it out. I saw something in there. Shaman. Brute force. Well, doesn't really help, but the energy regenerate per second will help. But if you check this out, +2 to savagery, which is what we are using. So it's definitely going to improve my skill. Let's see. Yes. It is. Not as helpful as they'd be at first level, but still helpful. I'll just drop a couple of these common things. Who cares? I always like to rescue this guy down here. That may come in handy later. Went up a level, okay. How about 1 point there and 2 points there? Get to make Drogon's Pact, give you some regeneration, which is always nice. Yeah, so I kind of like to do a couple points in physique for 1 in cunning. You just don't want one to become too high versus the other one. I mean, like I said, if you are going to use especially devotions that proc off of your crit damage, then you're going to want to bring cunning up there a ways, so at least you're procking as much as possible. I send you back. Okay, I'll talk to him later. By the way, if you happen to be new to this game and you don't know what I mean by procking, it's just how often your celestial powers fire. Which obviously, since I just started, I don't have any of those yet, but things such as this or this, some things operate off of a critical attack, such as this, for example. Assassin's Mark. So you're going to want to critically hit at least common enemies as often as possible. And cunning definitely helps with that. So you get kind of the idea of how we're going to start this. That's probably better than what I have. But essentially, what you need to do is use the skills that they give you to start out with, as I've demonstrated. You can either build on these skills later, or you can change them out and use something else. As it turns out, for this build, these 2 basic skills we're going to be using a lot. That's not always the case. It depends on your class, depends on your build. Right now I'm going to go ahead and pause this, and we're going to come back later and see how I'm progressing. Okay, welcome back. This is part 2 on the update on the bloodthirsty Trickster, and I just wanted to explain a couple of basic things. As you can see, she's dual wielding now. That's because I added the Nightblade class when I reached 10th level. Took dual blades and Veil of Shadow for a little bit of protection. And I got another one of these arms. I didn't farm another arm with this character. Farm meaning exit the game, come back in, attack that same guy, see if he would drop it. I already had another one. And it was stored in my stash. This is the stash. You have your own personal stash. There's also an item transfer where you can transfer items between characters. So if you have multiple characters, you can do that. Now, one thing that I use is I use a third-party program, which is not made by Create Entertainment, called Grim Dawn Item Assistant. And you can transfer items to and from the game and this program, and it essentially gives you unlimited storage. Highly beneficial, highly recommended. As I understand it, there are at least 2 programs that are like that. 2 different types of transfer programs, database programs essentially is what they are. I'm only familiar personally with Grim Dawn Item Assistant. It works very well. It's not perfect. A few of these items on tab 5 here, I can't transfer. It gives an error. So sometimes there are some bugs that happen anyways. But it's pretty rare. It works very well most of the time. Now let's take a look at, I wanted to explain shrines and devotions very quickly. I killed the boss down in this cave, the Devil's Aquifer, and I restored this shrine. There are 2 types of shrines. There are runed shrines and desecrated shrines. A runed shrine, you simply give it the items that it's asking for, anywhere from 1 to 3 items, whatever it's asking for. You give it that and it will award you some experience, some items, and a devotion point. A desecrated shrine, you just kill a wave of monsters. And so what do you do with your devotion point? Well, you go to your devotion screen. When you get your first point, you start at the crossroads and you pick a color. And it tells you the different names for these colors: Ascendant, Chaos. In this case, I chose Eldritch. I wanted to go for the bat. Does primarily vitality, bleeding damage, attack damage converted to health, and it has a celestial power that anytime that this thing triggers, it does damage to the enemy and gives you a portion of that enemy converted back to your health. Very, very useful skill. Matter of fact, this first order devotion is very useful throughout the entire game, especially because just like your skills, celestial powers will progress and go up levels over time with experience. Although this happens automatically, you don't put more points into it. It happens automatically as long as you keep using that devotion while you're adventuring. And this, you notice up here, 20% chance on attack. That percentage is solely based on whatever skill that it is pinned or associated with. And we can get a preview of these skills that will work with this particular celestial power based upon the 2 classes that I've chosen. Any of these types of skills are eligible. Personally, I like to use a power like this, a healing type of power with sort of a fire and forget type of skill. I think I'm going to be using it with Wendigo Totem eventually, but it's going to be a while before we even get this celestial power. Some first order ones you may want to use for a while, and then as you get more and more of these devotion points, you may choose to reassign them to a higher level one in the future. That's entirely up to you. Eventually, you'll want to get these higher order ones, like a third tier, one of these outer ones, that's appropriate for the build that you're doing, the damage type, etc. But that's a simple rundown of how that works, and we will come back later and see how this character is progressing. Okay, so I want to use this particular cave in Sodden Hollow to demonstrate a couple of points. First, we're going to take a look at our factions. Okay. So I've made contact with this Devil's Crossing is where you start, and let me explain the faction page. The faction page is your reputation with both friendly and hostile types of factions. And with a hostile type, you start out as hostile. Eventually you kill enough of them, you get to despised, eventually you get to hated, and finally nemesis. And they tell you what these, once you reach these certain levels, what happens. At nemesis, which is quite a long ways off, there's a special nemesis boss that will spawn in particular locations for that hostile faction. Very nasty, very tough boss. You have to be prepared for that. Now, with friendly factions, is you, in this case, Devil's Crossing, their arch enemy is Cromley's gang. So if you kill that type of hostile faction, you will gain reputation with Devil's Crossing, or if you do quests or bounties. So let's take a look. The Rovers I had just recently met and did a simple task for them. Now we're going to use this cave to demonstrate a couple of things. Actually, if we look at Devil's Crossing right now, we're currently at 800. Let's see if that goes up. When we kill a few of Cromley's men, if you come in here, let's see if what happens. Okay, now that's now 806. So that confirms that the 6 guys that I just killed were Cromley's gang. And I gained a little bit of reputation with Devil's Crossing. If we go down here and talk to these guys, see with the Rovers, we're currently 250. And you find out these guys are slaves, and that just means I leveled up. That's what that sound was. Okay. Now let's take a look at their reputation. It went up to 500, so when I freed those guys, my reputation with the Rovers went up. Just got some more Cromley's men. And you can also see that I'm not taking a lot of damage. These skills that I've chosen, although, again, for low-level type skills, they synergize well together for both damage and healing. I mean, they went down pretty fast, lowering their bleeding resistance, doing bleeding damage, lowering the enemy's offensive ability and speed when they get close. They synergize pretty well together. And this is how you should play the game, is use the skills that are available to you at low level to the best of your ability. Synergize what makes sense until you can get the higher level types of skills. You may choose to abandon some of the lower level ones if that makes sense as you go up, but the only thing you can do is use these low level skills in the beginning and synergize them the best you can. And let's take a look at what are the actual faction. What are these faction? This reputation scores. What do they mean? Well, the most obvious thing is if you go into a faction store. This is the Devil's Crossing faction store. Right now is tolerated. I can't buy anything at their particular faction store. You need to be at least friendly. This is the lowest level even to buy potions. At respected, as it says here, you can buy equipment or blueprints to make certain equipment or talismans, things of this nature. At Honored, you can buy augments for your particular accessories, such as rings, amulets. You can buy rings, you can buy medals. And then if you finally, once you get to Revered, it's higher level, you can buy elite types of equipment and higher level types of augments for your accessories, and even accessories for, or augments for your armor. They have a couple. So that's essentially how that works. And that's what your reputation will gain you. Which will be very useful. You may or may not use their actual equipment, but you will be using the different types of augments for your accessories and armor, because you will want to get these resistances as high as you possibly can. They typically max out at 80%. Your resistance is typically maxed out at 80%. There are certain ways that you can go above that, which will be very beneficial against higher level bosses and so forth in the future.
Put it to good use.
But that is the basics of reputation and how that's used, and just taking a look at how this character is doing, and how your lower level skills can work together to bring you success and survivability. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into this particular cave in Whitemire. I'll demonstrate restoring a shrine. Once we kill a small wave of monsters or beasts, you're just dying to meet me today. Beasts sort of guarding this shrine. Okay, by the way, as you notice down here at the bottom of the screen, my health, if you are not familiar with this, you can see how the health has like a yellow glaze over it, and that that represents your constitution and your ability to heal yourself naturally without any types of healing potions or other skills, spells, etc. If this yellow goes all the way down, which usually doesn't happen unless, say, at the beginning of the game when you're low level, you won't be able to really heal yourself. You don't want to get there. So you restore your constitution, that yellow haze, with vital essence and food rations. Okay. Now this is a desecrated shrine. And in order to restore it, you have to kill a wave of monsters. So we hit start, and then a bunch of monsters show up. That's my job to kill them all off. Once I do that, boom. The shrine is restored, and I get my point. Go to our devotion screen. It tells you over here, points available 1. And we're working on the bat. Boom, put that in there. It brings up my offensive ability and any vitality decay damage that I might inflict. So that's just the basics of restoring a shrine. Okay, so I picked up another skill. Made it to 13th level. Actually, 2 more. We advanced McDrogan's Pack with Heart of the Wild. Increases your percentage health regeneration a little bit. And I picked up Pneumatic Burst, which does a couple of things. It restores a little bit of health and gives you offensive ability, and it also, while it's running for 24 seconds, it regenerates 15 health per second. So that's going to synergize well. With this, it gets multiplied by 6%. So you start stacking these regenerations, then you have pretty good melee survivability. So fire that off. Oops. Doesn't mean you're invincible. Your resistances do play a part. There's also a switch which I would like to take. With that and 5 more levels, where you can use Pneumatic Burst more often. Consider restored a little bit of health with that. But a soldier like that, I shouldn't be able to face tank with something like a Nightblade. But again, synergizing some of these lower level skills can make you more durable than you otherwise would be without them.
I can't carry anymore.
Okay, time to go back to town, apparently. But I just wanted to demonstrate what can happen when you start to stack some of your skills. Okay, now one thing that I did is I went to my transfer stash, and you're not going to have this particular component early on in the game, but with my rings and amulet, and this amulet that I just recently acquired, I added corpse dust as a component to that, and you can see it gives you a percentage bonus to your health, but it also increases your health regeneration by a pretty good amount, and gives you some vitality resist. And you can look at that health regen skill down here. And for such a low level character, 13, this is a fairly high regeneration rate. And then if I use pneumatic burst, turn that on, and look at it again, it brings it up even more to 70. So if we were to go and find something to fight, I should do pretty well. It's just holding my own against most of the enemies that I'm currently going to be fighting against. So let's see if we can find somebody to fight. Yeah. Well, it kind of depends. Some of these enemies have retaliation damage, where you hit them and you'll take retaliation damage. And that's somewhat difficult to mitigate unless you have some type of reduction to that type of damage. Let's see what else we can find to fight. And not even acknowledging me yet, that's no challenge. How about this guy? He's a boss, or a hero. Yeah, I mean, all things considered, I mean, my resistances are still fairly low. They are going up a little bit, but still fairly low. But all things considered, he's holding his own reasonably well. And, I mean, some of these lower level monsters are like nothing at this point, just by synergizing some of these skills. Okay, so here we are with our bloodthirsty Trickster once again, and I want to see, I'm about to face kind of a tough boss for a low level character like this. Does a lot of physical and internal trauma damage. And I want to see if my skill set with the crazy regeneration and weaknesses towards the enemy and stuff, and even a little bit of physical resist now, just a little bit, how well that does in melee against this Shambler boss. Apparently pretty good. I mean, hardly took any damage. And I think it's largely because of that regeneration and so forth. Now again, I'm kind of cheating with the corpse test, which you would not have if you were new to this game. But then again, what you will have a lot of scavenge plating, which can boost your armor, and I haven't used any of that. You could be armoring up everything, which would at least give you some extra armor, a lot more than I have. It's just that I know that I'm going to be changing some of these components quite often, and other things that two other pieces of armor that you would normally probably wouldn't have is this Berserker's Cowl, which I'm using both of those skills, Dual Blades and Savagery, and Headhunter's Trophy. Phantasmal Blades I will be using in the future because I have the entire Blood Reaper set. We're going to revisit that once I reach level 20. I'll demonstrate that. But I just wanted to point that out. If you're utilizing your skills right with a character like this, you can even face tank some reasonably difficult opponents and come out on top. Okay, so I picked up some gloves that gave me a bonus to Veil of Shadow and Shadow Strike. So when I went up a level, I put a point in Shadow Strike. So I'm going to demonstrate how single targeting can be very effective against difficult opponents. Let's thin these guys out a little bit. Alright, buddy, you're all mine. See, and like these guys that are healing people, you can take them out. Coming out on top. So it's just a matter of utilizing your skills to be essentially as effective as you can be, using what you have. Sticking with bleeding damage, healing, targeting certain enemies when necessary, weakening opponents by lowering their OA, collecting any types of armor or other equipment that give you bonuses to skills. I recruited a blacksmith. That's another thing I should probably show you. Let's go back to town. Of course, you're going to need a blacksmith. I recruited Duncan, and you can make anything that you may need. When you start out, you're not going to have all of these nifty high-level items as I do, but they will have some basics. And I made a couple of silk swatches to bring up my pierce and bleeding resist. Any of those, raising your resistances to, as I said before, as high level as you possibly can will really help with survivability. I can really help you to tank these guys in large crowds. Soon we'll look at more effective ways of dealing with larger crowd control, because although I can stand my ground, I don't really have crowd obliteration types of skills yet. But as you'll see, when I combine Wendigo Totem with Devouring Swarm, that will really give me some great advantages, because as you can see in the skills, this lowers vitality resistance even more than it lowers bleeding resist, and Wendigo Totem does vitality damage, so it's a double whammy. And probably by that time I'll also have Twin Fangs, because I'm up to 4 out of 5 stars completed on this constellation, so we'll visit that shortly. Okay, so the character's leveled up to 19. But before I apply these points, I need to illustrate a point here. I've already demonstrated that so far this character has amazing durability. But eventually, you're going to start getting overwhelmed. Now, this isn't a real good example. It's not that many. Let's see if we can find a good crowd. Yeah, this is a good crowd. So she's standing her ground pretty good, but you start having some air support going on. And you have some melee fighters there. And so it becomes a little bit of a tough slog using the skills that I've already demonstrated, okay? I mean, these guys will go down pretty easy. They're not very resistant to bleeding damage, so. But after I clear them out, I need to pick up another skill. Since I've leveled up, on the Shaman side, I'm 1 point away from Wendigo Totem, so what we're going to do, boom, level up. I'll take 2 points. And where are we at? 5, 10, 2. I'll take 1 more in Cunning. Okay. And I need to assign the Wendigo Totem to the Y button. And boom. Okay. Now what does this do? What's going on? Wendigo Totem, it restores your life and does vitality damage to them. So what complements that? Well, again, on the Shaman side, when you look at Devouring Swarm, it lowers vitality resistance on a percentage even more than bleeding resist. So any bleeding damage I do, yeah, it's going to complement that, but it's also going to complement vitality damage as well, while this gives you health. So let's see if we can find another crowd to demonstrate that on. I'll have to go outside. Put one in here. You can see I'm not really taking anything. And for those that get close, I mean, they'll just go down. Pop. Let's see if we can demonstrate that a little better. Come on, let's find a crowd. We need to find a crowd here. This might work. So they seem to go down quite a bit quicker. And you have to experiment with this. These guys are annoyingly staying right outside of range. Because I think they know if they don't, they're toast. Although you notice my energy, the green bar, is lowering pretty fast too, because I'm using a lot of using Devouring Swarm quite a bit. But you can see, I mean, if I just stand within that, the influence of that
Wendigo totem. I'm pretty much untouchable. And it does help to really bring them down pretty fast. Especially if they get hit with the Devouring Swarm. Those two complement each other pretty well. And then if I go ahead and add Savagery, start attacking the melee. Okay. So let's go ahead and cleanse another shrine, and I can show you a couple more things that even make this more effective. So we'll start this. Come on, guys. See what you can do. Is that all you got? Still one little guy over there. Boom. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to Devil's Crossing. Boom. Go back to town. I haven't rescued Darlet yet. She's part of it's a quest I need to do. But we need to apply my final point, Twin Fangs. Okay. And so there's a couple things I could add it to. I would suggest either Devouring Swarm or Wendigo Totem. I think I'll just add it to this. This is up to your own experimentation as to what you think is going to work best. Now, I can reclaim this and put it somewhere else. How you do that is you go up to your friendly neighborhood spirit guide. Okay, and normally if you want to reclaim any of your skills and do something else, it's really cheap, 25 iron bits per point. It's a little different on devotions. It's that, plus it's an ether crystal. So I just click that, because this is self-sustaining. X that out of there, and then I can apply this wherever I would like. And can't remember where I was going after this. I think maybe I was going to work on Assassin's Blade to get to Assassin's Mark. I think that was what my plan was. So what I do is I'll put it into order, which is this order, and that will open this up. And as I cleanse more shrines, I can then start Assassin's Blade. Now we should go and try this out, find out what does this power do. So we're going to go back where we were. Okay, we need to go in here anyways. Drop my... Now it's kind of hard to see, but every once in a while what this will do is when you Wendigo Totem will fire off. You see that it's called Twin Fangs. They're two red little tracers that go off. Oops. And they They go out, strike an enemy, do damage, and return a portion of that back to me. You can even see on Wendigo Totem right here, this little small circle here that shows your Celestial Power Twin Fangs. 20% chance on attack, 10% main hand damage, so whatever you have in your main hand, it's going to do, 10% of that. Piercing Vitality, 20% attack damage converted to health. So as far as bringing health back to you, this is sort of a double whammy. You have every time Wendigo Totem pulses, you got health, and then every so often you're going to get some more health. So that'll do damage and make you even more so durable. So, and it complements with Vitality if you're using Devouring Swarm. It can really make you untouchable in these crowds when you combine these certain powers together. Things that wouldn't normally seem to do a whole lot on their own, when you start combining them and stacking them up, they suddenly become very, very powerful. And so I suggest taking a look at your skill set and what you have available to you, and how you can leverage one skill against another one. Okay, so I level up to level 20, and I have the entire Blood Reapers set. This is a 5-piece set, and if you play this game long enough, you're going to eventually accumulate entire sets. And if you don't, if you get some certain rare sets like legendaries and so forth that are harder to accumulate all of the pieces, it is possible to transmute one, if you have duplicates of one piece, into another, or if you can perhaps make the headpiece, for instance, you can transmute it into another piece, but that's for another topic for another discussion. So how this works, if you're not familiar, the more pieces of a set that you have, the more skills it unlocks. So let's start with the headgear. So right now only the headgear is lit up, and so there's no other bonuses unlocked. If we add the coat, which I've already previously added a silk swatch to, now I have 2 pieces, so it adds plus 50% to bleeding damage, all bleeding damage. So let's add another one. For instance, this, the cleaver. Now I have 3, so it adds the bleeding damage plus 65 offensive ability. And if I also add this one, I got 4. In addition to the other 2, it adds a 10% attack speed or casting speed. And then if I add this final piece, then I have all of them. So I get all of the benefits of 2, 3, 4, and 5 as well, plus 2 to all skills in Nightblade. So you can see how powerful these pieces, when worn together, can be. And each piece also has its own benefits as well. Like, for example, this one gives you plus 3 to Anatomy of Murder. Another Nightblade skill, Heartseeker, Phantasmal Blade. So I have not applied my points when leveling up, so I'm going to want to do that. And that was another thing I wanted to show you. Because of all the bonuses, Phantasmal Blades is definitely one of the big ones for this set. If I just put 1 point in there, all of a sudden, boom, just adding 1 point leverages me to 9 because of all of the bonuses. Now, what I suppose I could do is take some points out of other skills, so that I could get Heartseeker. You can see I'm still a few points away from that, and 8 points away from Anatomy of Murder. But I'll probably be using this set for some time to come. So I can, apply those points later if I want to. And but it gives you huge bonuses. And it's quite an upgrade from the gear that I have. So I just wanted to point that thing out. Another thing I could do as well is create a relic, and I probably should do that, or at least I'm not sure exactly which relic I want to go with. There's actually not too many that are available to me at such a low level as level 20. You can see this is 25. I don't know if there's anything that's actually appropriate at this point. There are a couple of them that are available at 18th level, but most of them are available at 21st level. But you can add a relic as well, and that gives you even further bonuses to everything else you've got going on. So you can see how powerful this can become very quickly as you start stacking things up. Okay, so how is our Trickster performing so far with all this new gear, with all the 5-piece Blood Reaper set? I even have 2 pieces of the Explorer set for speed and some resistances and so forth. You can make at least the trousers at the blacksmith when you get the blacksmith, and it's pretty common to find the other pieces. Anyways, so let's try it out. Taking very little damage. Yeah, it dishes out insane amounts of damage. Oops, took some there. And to gain it back pretty fast though. This is a hero. Let's see how well. Recovers health pretty fast, especially when you use pneumatic burst. Now, one thing I should have done before coming in here, because the ethereals do a lot of ether damage. My ether resist is pretty low. I do have purified salt installed and turned on both of my weapons, but my resist is still pretty low. I do have a Spirit Bane potion, which I picked up along the way. Let's go ahead and consume that. And let's take on Warden Craig the boss for the early ethereal campaign. Let's turn that Wendigo totem back on. You can see anytime I fire off that Phantasmal Blade, he takes a lot of damage.
When I'm done with you, I will crush your friends and them. You are strong.
Okay.
Now, I will demonstrate.
And then he transforms.
Power!
think my Wendigo totem was not turned on. I take damage, but gain it right back.
Skill's not ready.
Ah, piece of cake. So you can see, even with a character that's not tanky, if you utilize your skills right. I mean, you don't have to sit there and face tank him if you don't want to, but just kind of the point is that you can, if you've done your due diligence in stacking up your skills, complementing one with another, it can have incredible amounts of healing. Okay, so the Blood Reaper Trickster has been is advanced a few levels. We're at level 30, and wanted to point out a few things that I've done with this character that's definitely made her more durable. I mean, my resistances, well, most of them are getting up there. But I was starting to have trouble on the front line. Character just wasn't armored up enough and probably didn't have enough physical resist. You can take a look over here. 14, not too bad for reasonably low level character. And I get some physical resist from dual blades. It's just a nice little perk bonus that comes with that skill. But also sometimes what you got to do is use equipment that has skills that you may not be using or not even available to you, such as these stone rot groundbreaker boots. Brute force is a skill I could use, but that's a two-handed weapon and it's really not what this build is about. But it does give me 6 physical resist and brings up my physique. Just in general, these boots make you tougher, and it shows. There's certain enemies, such as Nicholas, one of the Cronley's gang, that does a lot of physical and internal trauma, which probably would be a problem for this character that I just faced recently, and it was really no trouble at all. So let's see how this character is doing. I'm out on bounties for Devil's Crossing. That's another thing that I can point out as well. If you're not familiar with doing bounties, once you get up to the respected level, and these pluses, I have a bonus reputation because I applied what's called a mandate. That's something that you'll run into later in the game, writs and mandates, and you can consult other tutorials about that, but they allow you to gain reputation with any friendly faction a lot faster than you normally would. Okay. Oh, there's one right there. That was easy. And this last guy that I just killed, that was Assassin's Mark. There was a blue cross swords above his head pinned to Devouring Swarm. I have Assassin's Mark, so it lowers their pierce and physical resistance. Already it's gone up to level 3. So that makes him very vulnerable to my standard melee attack, to the dual blades triggered by savagery. Just this attack here. And I need to find one more of those. That looks like they're busy.
There we go. Got a hero. You can see the crossed swords. It's going to go down pretty fast. Okay. So our character's doing very, very well at this level. It's just how it goes with progression, is keep trying to upgrade your resistances to max, as I've stated. Upgrade your armor. Also, with oak skin, it not only boosts my defense and armor, but also pierce resist and ether resist, which allowed me to remove one of these silk swatches out of my pants and instead put ancient armor plate, which gives me more armor. So I think it'll be able to squeeze the life, extend the life of some of this older set a little bit by bringing up my overall armor rating. So just some things to keep in mind.